Welcome to the Athlete CEO podcast. Each week, we aim to bring you world-class interviews with the brightest, most successful entrepreneurs, innovators, athletes, and business minds today to share insights on how to leverage your wealth for maximum impact in all areas of your life. You won't be hearing any vague theories or strategies from us. Our guests have walked the walk and are committed to sharing the best of what they know so you can apply the lessons that they have learned, sometimes the hard way. Whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or just curious what drives the success of these guests, this podcast is for you. Now, let's get to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Athlete CEO podcast. I am extremely excited for all of our listeners today. We have an amazing guest, a legend in so many ways from an athletic perspective, but just excited to hear about the transition from being deemed the world's fastest man at one point of his career to now really being a picture of how do you carry success from your athletic career all the way through life. And so with that, we'd like to welcome Michael Johnson to the podcast. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, this is, as we've talked about before, an exciting conversation because so many of our listeners are currently in the middle of their professional athlete career. We have a handful that have made this transition into, I would say, the regular world of trying to have success, whether that's in business, as broadcasting, or coaching their specific sport. And so much of this is your background. And so where I would love to start is, maybe not necessarily focusing on all of the accolades, the 4 gold medals and all of those amazing things, but maybe at the end of your career, as you started to make that transition from the track and field into what's going to be next. So my question is at what point in your career did you actually start to think about life after sport?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, given the unique nature of my sport, I was thinking about, and my journey as well into professional sports, I was thinking about what was going to happen after professional sports before I even got into it. When I was I got into college, my freshman year of college at Baylor University, I arrived on campus right out of high school, not thinking, this is going to be 1 year of college and then on to professional sports, or 4 years of university and on to professional sports. I thought I'm going to spend 4 years here, and because I'm on scholarship, I don't have to pay for it, and then I'm going to go into the world of business. So that was what I thought was going to happen. I made a huge jump in terms of realizing what my potential was that freshman year at Baylor, and then became introduced to what I had never even realized before, which was an opportunity to be a professional athlete in the sport of track and field. So my journey was a little bit different, and then the unique nature of track and field is as a sport where you've got a few people at the very top who do really, really well financially and are truly professional athletes in the way that anyone would understand a professional athlete's life and earning potential. But that's very few. The overwhelming majority of people in the sport, are sort of upper middle class in this sport. So it's a tough sport. So you never know if you're going to be one of those or not. So even when I got into the sport, my first year into the sport, signed a contract with Nike and was doing really well, and truly a professional athlete and had professional athlete earning potential. But it's a unique sport where it's only every 4 years that you get the chance to really make a mark that sort of transitions you as an athlete into the consciousness of just normal sort of people outside of track nuts, and so you just never know how long that career is going to last. So I was always thinking, and then I knew as well when I got into the sport that I'm going to retire at a very early age, even if I have a long career. And I was fortunate to be in the sport professionally for 12 years. So I was already thinking throughout my career, what's going to be next. When I'm 32, 33 years old, what am I going to be doing for the rest of my life? What do I want to do? And it was always to me, I'm going to pick right back up where I always thought I was going to land after college, and that is business and entrepreneurship.
That's very helpful. I have so many thoughts racing through my mind. One of the things that I would love to hear you speak into is a lot of athletes make the comment that I just don't have time. It's I only have a short window to play. And so for you, knowing this is already an extremely difficult sport, it's something that you can be fantastic for 3 years and then have one bad trial and you don't even get to show up in the most important time that you've been planning for. So from your perspective, there's this hyper focus on making sure you're performing at the highest level at the right time. But I'm hearing you said, I've also have this focus on becoming a business person and rounding myself as just an overall person in general. What would you say to the athlete that makes the comment, I want to do it, I just don't have time?
That's really just a choice. And to be completely honest, it's a bit of a cop out, because if you think about the life of a professional athlete, and especially team sport athletes, where, you've got practices every day, and you've got training, you got games, and you're on the road and that sort of thing. But you have a tremendous amount of downtime, probably more so than most people, in a sort of normal 9 to 5. There's no doubt about it. I'm not arguing the fact. I was a professional athlete, so I know that you're never off. It's 24/7 in terms of, you got to be taking care of your body. You can't be out, doing things physically, that are going to affect practice later in the day. And then you got recovery after practice. But that's downtime that, from a mental standpoint, you got all sorts of time. And there's an argument as well that you don't want to be, 24/7 mentally focused on, on the sport and on the job. And then you think about, just the reason I say it's a cop out, people saying that they don't have time. Think about the time that you spend on so many other things that are recreational and enjoyable, which are important, for that balance. But at the same time, it's also important to have that balance of thinking about, what are you passionate about? How do you prepare for life after sports? That is important, and it doesn't take the sort of time that these people that are making that argument that I don't have time. I'm not sure maybe they have a flawed sense of what it actually takes to think about and sort of prepare yourself for life after sports, but I just don't buy that argument.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. For the athlete that maybe just heard that and said, you know what, Michael's right, I can't use that cop out, but I don't know where to start. What recommendation would you make to the athlete who is starting to be curious about life after sport and business? Are there any resources or just general frameworks that you would point them to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, just spending the time thinking about, what do you want to do? I think there's a natural assumption by the public. I mean, as soon as people see me, and stop me on the street, first thing they say is, "Oh, are you coaching athletes now?" There's just a natural assumption that if you're an athlete, and you've had success in a sport, that you're going to coach in that sport or you're going to broadcast in that sport. And that may not be what you're passionate about. Certainly, if you're an athlete who was in that sport, you've got some knowledge that you could share and impart on to another generation of players. And that may be, a possibility for you, or broadcasting, because you can, get in the booth and explain to viewers what they're seeing, and that may be a passion for you, but it may not. So, so I think that it's, just trying to understand what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you might have an interest in, and giving that some thought. I mean, and thinking about that. What do I want? What do I want my life to look like after this is over and I'm no longer training every day and going to practices every day and games and all of those things that, we all are fortunate to enjoy as athletes. But what do I want my life to look like on a day-to-day basis? And just really start to think about that and formulate some ideas as to what it is that you want to do and how you want your life to look. And then, talking to people who've been through the process as well. But once you get an understanding of, what you think you may want to do, then spending some time, getting an understanding of that particular role or that particular career or industry.
Michael, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was struck by a comment you made just a few minutes ago about really transferring the interest beyond sport. And I know you've done a fantastic job of that. In previous conversations, we've talked about your work with the BBC and doing documentary work. I'm curious, did you happen to use, I would imagine the answer is yes, use your platform while you were an athlete to reach outside of circles that were purely sport? And if somebody wanted to go about that, we've heard multiple stories about different athletes doing this. How would you envision giving some advice to an athlete that wants to get outside of their traditional sport and try to develop relationships?
Yeah, I think it's effort first, and doing the research to find out, networking and then connecting with people who have expertise in that particular area and learning from them. That would be my suggestion. It's what I did. I was just through. We have an incredible platform for networking with folks in different industries as an athlete, because everyone loves sports and wants to mingle with and talk with athletes, and so you have an incredible opportunity given the platform that you have as an athlete to be able to meet some incredible people in different industries and in different areas that you might have interest in. So I would suggest that, reaching out to those people, but making sure that that there are people in the industry that have respect and have had success, and that will be able to really explain how that particular industry or that particular career might work.
Makes a tremendous amount of sense and great advice. Kind of switching gears a little bit. Obviously, you've made that successful transition to business owner, and you did it in a way that we hear so often with Michael Johnson Performance. The process, opening a facility, what that takes to be successful. I'd just love for you to share a little bit of your path in deciding to open up Michael Johnson Performance, and then also what about that has been challenging? Would you recommend opening performance institutes at the end of your career? Maybe just shed some light on the success around that venture.
Yeah, it's I started Michael Johnson Performance 13 years ago, and what we do is provide training and support services to athletes, but also to teams. We work with numerous different Premier League soccer teams around the world, Olympic federations, and governments. And so while we do operate a training facility in Dallas and a sports performance research center there, a large part of our business takes place outside of the center. And so it's a little bit different operating a training center, where the entirety of the business takes place within, the walls of that facility. And what we do, which is, with consultants and folks spread out around the world working in the sport industry and providing product development to support to companies like Nike and Technogym and different technology companies developing wearable devices and that sort of thing. So we're a pretty varied, enterprise in terms of what Michael Johnson Performance does, but we certainly do stay in our lane in terms of sport, though. And that's been a process over the 13 years and a process born out of being a true entrepreneur and trying to find out, figure out, where the opportunities are. One of the challenges and why we've been able to build such a global brand and presence around the world and be involved in so many different things is born out of some of the challenges of operating a training center. That's a very difficult business, and I learned that along the way. That's a tremendously difficult business to operate when there are so many options out there, and sports performance is still a relatively young industry, where if you imagine, professional athletes typically will have access, with their teams to, the best training and support, and the youth athletes, their parents are sort of, my age or younger, but they still are old enough to where sports performance for them was, get in the gym and lift some weights at school, so it's a relatively young industry, this whole idea of optimizing athleticism, speed, strength, power, agility, and minimizing the risk of injury and using sports science to optimize recovery and regeneration and all of the, elements of and facets of athleticism outside of the skill of the sport, which is where obviously most people spend most of their time. So, that's still relatively new, and there aren't a lot of players in the industry. So trying to operate a facility that is contingent on people and dependent rather on people, your target market, knowing that, yeah, this is something that's going to benefit me and I've got to find the time for it and then I've got to pay for it. Most of the kids and their parents, they just want to go out and play the sport. And then, in a lot of the communities where we, operate, or, where you could find parents and kids and folks who can afford that sort of service, they're already spending $3,000 a year, to play select soccer. So, and they've got practices every evening. So when are they going to find the time? So it's a tough business. For us, we're at the top of the sort of food chain as it relates to where we sit in the industry. And so our target market are people who get it and already understand, and we don't have to really sort of educate them much on why they should be taking part in this sort of training. And they're willing to commit the time and the money to it because they understand it and they get it and they understand what optimizing performance is going to mean for them.
That's really helpful. And we've actually had a couple clients that have trained their off season out there at Michael Johnson Performance in Dallas and have nothing but amazing things to say. The technology, the abilities there are second to none. And so, it's really interesting just to hear that even with such a successful reputation and facility, it still can be challenging to get people through the door at times. So I think that's going to be really helpful to our audience. I'm curious, I know that the facility isn't just your end game, so I'm curious to know what's ahead for Michael Johnson Performance, and what are you working on that you're passionate about right now? I know your business ventures go far beyond just the Performance Institute there.
Yeah, it's so we continue to grow Michael Johnson Performance and the work that we do with all of our different clients. And so, there's still room to grow for that business. But we're launching later this year, MJP Digital, Michael Johnson Performance Digital, where we're able to remotely coach athletes wherever they may be in the world. We're able to provide digital accessible programs, training programs for athletes at any level of their sport and all sports. So we're really excited about that. And one of the things that we developed over the 13 years that we've been in business, a reputation around the world, really, with all of the different clients that we have around the globe and all of the different sports we work in, as being leaders in sports performance and sports science, and how we leverage technology and sports science through some fantastic partners that we have to be able to really optimize sports performance and development of athleticism. So this is really exciting for us because it gives us the opportunity now to fulfill that demand that we've had, for so long from athletes and teams around the world. And it's been a struggle due to the lack of advances in technology that allows us to truly be able to offer a quality experience and effective training that gets the results that athletes are looking for without us having a coach right there in front of that athlete. Now we have the ability to do that.
Michael, a few things that strike me that I would love to hear your thoughts on are, first, a lot of times we'll hear athletes talk about just wanting to lend their name to something, that you did have this incredible national, really global brand because of your accomplishments on the track. Yet it sounds like you've taken a very active role in this investment. And so I'd love to first hear your thoughts on the difference of just throwing your name on something versus being an operator. And then second, just as you have shared this incredible vision to really bring the best of sports performance globally to all athletes, and the demands of technology and the multiple facets of health. This is clearly you're not doing something on your own. And a lot of times our guys will want to take their a large portion of their financial capital and throw it at one specific idea. And so can you, with obviously maintaining privacy, just talk through like even how you've made a decision of how much of your own personal net worth do you invest in any one particular business? And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on those two components.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the athlete and their situation. So, I don't think that in the right situation, I don't think that there's anything wrong with just lending your name to something and not being an active operator or being involved on a daily basis, as long as it's something that you believe with, it aligns with your sort of mission and goals and aligns with, how you would want to do business. Obviously, I would caution anyone, from putting their name on something that would be operated in a way that they may not, operate it themselves. But as long as you can trust, that product or that business, and you feel like, you can add some value with your name, as long as your name is being used in the right way, I wouldn't discourage that. But certainly, the further removed you are from what you put your name on, the more you have to be very, very careful there. But, in terms of how much, you put, your own money into any sort of venture, that's an area you have to be extremely careful about. And I would advise anyone, who's thinking of, certainly in retirement, thinking of putting money into any venture, any idea they have themselves, to really get some serious advice from different folks who can help and provide different perspectives, and make sure that you're looking at it from every angle and what that risk might be. So at the end of the day, when you make the decision as to whether or not you want to, bring on investors, which is fraught with all sorts of issues as well, if they're not the right investors, or if you're going to do it yourself, which is, taking on all the risk yourself, make sure that you've sought out, some really good advice, so that you can look at the situation from all perspectives, eyes wide open, so that at the end of the day, when you make your decision, you're making it fully aware of whatever the risks may be for what you're deciding to do there.
That's really sound advice. The other area I'd love to hear your just wisdom on is the other thing that's become very popular because of just mainstream media is Shark Tank. We see Mark Cuban on their guest appearance by Alex Rodriguez, or we hear these things in the news of Steph Curry and a lot of the other Warriors players getting access to Silicon Valley and finding the next, Uber, Facebook, or XYZ. And I can only imagine with your global brand and notoriety over the years that you have been pitched many business opportunities. How would you tell players and very candidly any wealthy individual of when it comes to these private investment opportunities, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I get a lot of that, and which has been great. It's been fantastic. I've had some real successes from being fortunate enough to network and meet with people who have introduced me into some fantastic opportunities that have benefited me along the way. But you just have to be really, really careful who you decide to invest with and who you decide to trust. My philosophy has always been, and I know that I've missed out on some amazing opportunities, but I'd rather miss it, and keep what I've got, rather than I'm just not a gambler. So if it sounds too good to be true, then, or if I don't understand it and I can't get to a point of understanding it, it's not for me. And it takes some time, to get an understanding of these things, and what I have, invested in and opportunities that I have taken. The only way I've gotten a good understanding of those is by having some great mentors and people that I can trust, who I've been able to, sort of leverage their experience and go along with them, as opposed to going it alone on my own in a world that I didn't previously know.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to pivot back to the conversation around health and performance. It was something that you had made the comment of how early we still are in this world of high performance and health, and redefining what the term means. And I'd love to hear you expanding it beyond the pro athlete. I think back to my own career, and I'm dealing with a back issue, and I made the comment to my wife that the thing I miss the best about being a pro athlete is if you got hurt, you just went into the trainer room for the next 7 days and then you were healed. But with the realities of the rest of life, and that's not where you spend your time. It's health and wellness can be a difficult thing for, definitely athletes, but everybody in general. And this new taking ownership of your own health and your own wellness. Can you talk into that? Especially there are so many business owners or venture capital investors that are listening to this podcast, and we still have that type A gritty personality, but our bodies don't seem to work the same way. We're sitting a lot. What advice do you have for like just expanding comprehensive view of health and wellness?
Yeah, it's an interesting space right now that I'm pretty involved with. So I've seen a lot of the changes, the intersection between the medical community and wellness and health and longevity and then performance as well, are all related. I'm seeing a lot, there with regard to services, technology. That's very helpful. So I think that it's becoming easier for individuals and certainly high performing individuals who maybe have come out of the sports world or even not but are high performing individuals who are under a tremendous amount of stress and looking to be at their best every day, and performance is important for them in life. I think what we're seeing now is a tremendous amount of focus and investment into devices and services that do allow you to take better care of yourself and be more aware of your body and your wellness status on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that I'm very interested in myself at 52 years old, and and traveling a lot and trying to take care of businesses and live an active life and do what I want to do. That's important to me personally, but it's also an area that I've invested in. It's an area that as even with MJP, with Michael Johnson Performance, we're seeing a tremendous amount of interest in partnerships that want to access our ability to optimize athletic performance, to transition that into sort of the weekend warrior athlete and high performing individuals in the corporate space as well.
If you'd be willing, would you maybe share, you'd made the comment that obviously you're traveling a ton for your own business ventures, and whether it's being a commentator or a consultant or, obviously being a dad and a husband and all of these great things, is what is your typical, morning, weekly routine when it comes to aspects of your health that you focus on to keep yourself healthy?
Yeah, it's my situation is now changing a bit. Now that I'm 52, my son's off to college, doesn't have time for me anymore. He's over in New York, so depends on where you are. But I can remember 13 years ago, when he was 6 years old, and I was just starting MJP. I was in the middle of my 6 years into my broadcast career with BBC over in the UK. So traveling back and forth to London a ton, doing a great deal of corporate motivational work. So I was very, very busy during that time, and it was important for me to look after myself. And I feel like I did. Kept a strict training regimen still, very different from when I was an athlete, of course, but a good fitness regimen. Always ate healthy, and I think that helped me a lot during that time. Now, I've always been fortunate that I could, as I've established MJP and established myself in all of my post athletic career endeavors, been fortunate to sort of travel, pick and choose how I want to travel, when I travel. I enjoy travel. Fortunately, my travel is to places over in Asia and Europe and Africa and places that I'm interested in going. I'm not having to go to, I'm not like a minor league baseball player on a bus going to places you've never heard of, which I'm sure you guys have had some experience with. So that's all, and it's what I've been used to. So travel also is something that, comes natural for me, that I travel well, because as an athlete, with competitions around the world, as a track and field athlete, our competitions were all around the world. And so you had to learn how to sleep on the plane early on, and I did. So that was never a problem for me. But I think that, again, I think I was able to get through those times when it was a really, a pretty robust travel schedule and stress and all of those things by just continuing to keep up a good fitness regimen and diet and that sort of thing. But all of that said, you can be doing all of the right things, which I was in 18 months ago, August 2018. I'm out, here at my house, out in my gym doing a workout, and afterwards started having this strange sensation of not being able to coordinate my leg, and my arms doing some weird things and tingling. And just after I finished the workout, and long story short, out of an abundance of caution, I went to the hospital and into the emergency room, and I'd had a stroke. And 2 hours later, I can't walk, can't stand on my left side, can't move my fingers. And a team of doctors come into my room and tell me, you suffered a stroke deep on the right side of your brain, and you may recover completely or you may not. And so I had to go into, take a leave of absence from all of my different, career endeavors and really focus on recovery, and fortunately was able to fully recover and get back to normal. But I think, again, that is, that recovery, and I was able to recover, very, very quickly in about six weeks, and, not fully recovered in 6 weeks. It took about 6 months to fully recover, but I was walking again and back to running in a couple of months. But, I was only able to do that through my experience of being an athlete. So I know a lot of your listeners are athletes, and there's just a tremendous amount of advantage to that. The mindset that you develop having been an athlete, will get you through those tough times like that, as it did for me. It's helped me to succeed in business, and it's just there's just no substitute for it. So wellness is extremely important, whether it's for prevention, which, it certainly can help with, or overcoming, in a situation like mine, overcoming some sort of major issue like that, which, we're probably going to face at some point.
Well, Michael, thanks for sharing that. I know it was definitely a very difficult time to go through something like that, but I think just hearing that, how important it is, the message that you just delivered to take care of yourself even after we hang up the spikes or we transition out of the game, how important it is, like you said, to continue to focus on wellness as prevention. And then, really your message around the mindset, I think is equally as important. I'd love to hear a little bit more, if you don't mind expanding, just, how do you cultivate that mindset? Because I think so many people go through this transition when they get out of sport, whether it be an identity crisis, just not knowing who we are because we don't have that structure anymore to show up to the field every day or to the track every day. How do you recommend athletes continue to keep that edge or continue to keep that competitiveness flowing and turn something that's obviously could potentially be catastrophic into something that, you had mentioned you learned from and kind of, battled through, and it made you better in business and life and in all aspects?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, athletes can really benefit from, having a good understanding early on. When everything is great, you're an athlete, you realize your dream is something you've dreamed of for years. And I mean, we all know how fortunate we are as professional athletes, where, we've had friends and teammates, throughout our lives up to that point, we all wanted to be in this position, realizing the dream of playing professional sports, and we made it, and so many others did, and so we're very fortunate. I think the mistake that a lot of athletes make is just sort of soaking and basking in that fortunate status and position as if it's going to last forever, and it's not. You're going to transition. The unique situation about being an athlete is that, you're going to retire at a very early age from that career. And you're going to have to get back to the reality of life at some point. We're very fortunate that, if we play it right, you can say you're set up for the rest of your life, but you have to be thinking about the rest of your life. And what was important for me is being known as the fastest man in the world was fantastic. Being known as gold medalist, world record holder, all of those things that I was known for was great. But it was important for me to know that, but that's not all that I am. I'm not just that. Now, that's all that everyone knows me as, and the people who don't know me truly, the people who aren't my family and friends, people out, fans and media, that's all they know me as for the most part. And but if you get caught up in that yourself, that's who I am, then once that's gone, and you're 35 years old, and you're now retired, and all of that is now gone, then yeah, you're going to struggle, and now you got to try to find out who you are and who can I be now, and that's why you see so many athletes in the past who have retired and then tried to make a comeback. That's why you see so many athletes struggle to figure out, where they go afterwards, and struggle with, addiction, and struggle with, finances, because they're reaching for that same sort of status and to bask in that sort of glory again. And it ends, and you have to be prepared for that and transition into what's next. And that's why, again, it's so important. The two things I try to tell athletes most is the two most important things during your career is to figure out what you're passionate about outside of the sport and what you want to do next, and start to prepare for that. And that's number one. And two, don't get caught up into, what everyone else sees you as, this champion athlete, and that's all that you are, because that's going to end, and you still got a lot of living to do.
Wow, that's powerful, and I don't know that I could have set it up to ask for really a better summary or ending. And so we just want to say thank you so much for this advice. I think you have given all of our listeners, and I know certainly Brandon and me, a lot to think about, from expanding, how we see the world beyond maybe just certain aspects of our lives, and for using the platform in which all of us have been blessed to have to benefit others and to expand in other areas. And so we really appreciate that. And before we go, just for our listeners that want to find you, want to learn more about Michael Johnson Performance and what you're up to, what's the easiest way to connect? Is it just going to the website? Is there anything you can ask of our listeners?
Yeah. So I mean, if you're interested in our services, you can just go to michaeljohnsonperformance.com, and you can follow us on social media, on Instagram as well as Twitter as well. So we're there, and I mean, you can find out anything about me as well there. And appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Michael, once again. This was truly a blessing and a gift, and I know our listeners are going to be very blessed by this. So thank you so much. And for all of the Athlete CEO listeners, we thank you for just giving us your time. We hope that this would provide a ton of value to you, both on and off the field. And until next time, stay hungry.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Athlete CEO Podcast, a production of AWM Capital. Please note that investments and strategies mentioned on this podcast may not be suitable for you. We encourage you to discuss your specific situation with a qualified, certified financial planner. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion at AWM Capital or its affiliates. For more information, visit awmcap.com.